Welcome everyone to another episode of Unity Manifest. I am your host, Gary Cacciolillo, and today our guest is Neil from Portal to Ascension. He's been on everything imaginable a few times, and I really always enjoy his work. And sometimes he has sent me some other guests. So thank you for being on, Neil.
Thank you for having me, brother. Good to be here with you.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier before the show that maybe we would talk a little bit about light language. So can you explain to my listeners what light language is and where it comes from?
Yes. Well, first, I like to share my journey with it because I was a skeptic on light language for a while, and I've been creating events for many years since 2008, but I
Hmm.
really got into this world around 2001. So pretty soon after that, maybe 2002, 2003, I came across light language, but not until maybe 2 years ago, which is like 2023, 2021, did I even like start accepting it on a deeper level. And the reason for that is I figured like anybody could just say anything. Anybody could speak in tongues, anybody could speak and just make up some stuff.
Hmm.
And but then, since I do a lot of events, randomly every now and then there would be a speaker after they talk, they want to do light language. And there were certain people that were doing the light language, and as soon as they began doing it, full body chills. Like I was like, whoa, just felt it. It just penetrated my cells. So I was like, oh, wait a second, this is very interesting. And then a few years ago, I was at a float tank, float therapy.
Yes.
So I was in the float tank and this started happening many times. And I would be in there. And when I was in that stillness state, in that void state,
Hmm.
no gravity on me, completely relaxed, I would just be breathing in and out. And when I was breathing out, light language would come out. I would say things and I wasn't trying to move my voice. I wasn't trying to move my vocal cords. I wasn't forcing it. I was just breathing in and out. And then all of a sudden, this language would come out. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. When I'm at a place of complete stillness, when I'm at a place of like, there's literally no weight on me, and I'm in the most meditative state I can be, just by breathing in and out, there's this underlying frequency, is this light language. So that was kind of me moving more into like accepting this as a reality even more. And then a couple of years ago, and I'll get into what it is after I share my journey with it, I had a QHHT regression hypnosis
Hmm.
where I was in it for 5 hours, and within that, all of a sudden, I'm inside Inner Earth, and I meet the dragon race inside Inner Earth called the Red Dragon Tribe. And when I start asking all these questions, where are you from? Why are you showing me this? They took me to Orion's belt. They showed me reptilian races and all this stuff. And towards the end of the regression, the dragon that was coming through me said, "Can I speak?" And the regressionist said yes. And then all of a sudden, the dragon language came out of me. And I was just communicating and speaking. And it was just very deep, kind of like a Japanese Sanskrit kind of tone, right?
Hmm.
And it really felt the dragon language actually sounds very similar to Sanskrit. And I think every language is derived from a different ET lineage. I think that might be connected to the dragons. And so since then, I've been incorporating it into some workshops. I've been doing it with music, spoken word poetry with dragon light language. And so what it is that they are many civilizations throughout the galaxy, throughout the universe, interdimensionally, and a lot of them exist in frequency bandwidths that aren't perceptible to our human senses, right? The light spectrum is way more than what we see, the sound spectrum is way more than what we see, and their communication sometimes is telepathic or just exist at a vibratory frequency that we're not able to even perceive, like a sound that is higher than our audible ears can listen to. So the light language is that frequency or that transmission from these beings encoded into what we can perceive within our spectrum of frequency, right? So so it's not always exactly how they communicate,
Hmm.
but it's how we translate their communication through our own vocal cords.
Right. Yeah. Because we're limited in how we can project it. So we can only express it, like, I guess, to like the best that we can
Yeah.
through our, you know, as it passes through our cognitive, you know, filter.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And even though we filter it on some level, there are like we could still experience the deepness and how profound that sound is, right? Like I told you,
Hmm.
when I got full body chills, and when I do the dragon language, it's very powerful because not only do people who are listening to it feel it, but I feel it in my own body. Like it's kind of like rewiring my whole body. It's making me feel more present. It gives me more confidence. It uplifts me. All those things.
Right. Um, was it hard for you to accept this as a true reality in the beginning? Like
The
how
Yeah.
like integrating it, like wow, this is like real. Like all of a sudden, like, we're told that we're living in this 3D reality, and then all of a sudden you're aware that there's all these other realities and other modes of consciousness and different paradigms. And
Yeah.
was it,
Oh, you mean
like,
like in general when I got into this stuff, right?
well, in
Like,
general, and then also like it sounds like the light language was like your true experience of it, though.
yeah,
Like that, like
true.
whoa.
So, I was doing this for so long without having a tangible experience. I now know I probably had experiences that I was not conscious of.
Hmm.
And so having a tangible experience of it is something I've always wanted. Like I've always wanted to have like contact with ETs, communication, that kind of thing, right? But I realize now, like the more you want something, the less likely you're going to get it if you come from that neediness and that desire,
Hmm.
right? And so I had kind of given up the need for wanting. But in the beginning, when I first got into this stuff, what ETs, ancient history, Anunnaki, Sumerians, what quantum physics is, I don't even think it was too much of like a culture shock, if you will, or a shock to me. It was almost like, oh yeah, this makes more sense than this world, right?
Hmm.
So I was like, now the world makes sense. Right? And then when I got into dragon language, yeah, actually the harder part for me is when people ask me to do it. And now not so much. I'm getting better at it now. But in the beginning, I would always meditate first and or like even for a minute or 30 seconds, I would meditate, I would breathe, I'd close my eyes. Whereas many people, they do light language on the spot without closing their eyes, without having to meditate. And I always felt like I needed to like meditate to let the human out of the way so I can let the frequency through, right?
Hmm.
And so I would feel I would really be careful about sharing it because I really wanted to make sure that it wasn't me just trying to make something up.
Right.
You know?
Makes sense.
And on some level, I'm still in that reality a little bit, but I'm moving towards now trusting it a little more.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, I know for me, I I came into all this too as a skeptic in some ways, and but it was also as a result of a near death experience also that kind of like
Mhm.
pushed me into starting the podcast. But I guess like for me, it was kind of, I always took a lot of this stuff like, um as like a philosophy or figuratively, but I didn't see it quite literally. And when I started seeing it literally, that's when it became
Mhm.
intense.
Yeah. Yeah, you can intellectualize it, like, and that's what I did a long time as well, is like it makes sense intellectually,
Hmm.
but when you start feeling it, that's a whole other thing, right? So it's like information as opposed to experience. And Portal to Ascension has been a lot about information, and we've done a lot of experiences events as well. I mean, I started by doing sound healings for years, and now I'm actually moving more back in towards more experience oriented events and including like things like breath work. Breath work is a huge part that I'm now incorporating. And what I'm realizing is that we have our own tools inside us to create those experiences. We don't need something external. Our breath, chanting, our voice are
Hmm.
able to get us to those points. And you might not see things, but you can feel things. You can feel a sense of inner peace. You can feel a sense of connection, right? So
Hmm.
that's what I'm doing for myself a lot in my life, as we shared in the beginning. Huge transformation going on for you as well for me, and it's more like dropping into a deeper sense of authenticity and just almost even like having a minor identity crisis on the level of, well, who am I and what am I here to bring in the world? And it's because I think it's a necessary identity crisis because a lot of times I personally have identified with what I do, and a lot of what I thought I was and what I was bringing is not what is moving forward in the next few years, you know? So it's like a huge reflection on what that is. So what I've done for myself and now for Portal Ascension is incorporate these experiences so that we can truly not just intellectualize and know we're not alone,
Hmm.
right? And I don't mean just ETs, I mean like our guides, the our higher selves, our connection to source, not just know we're not alone, but just to really feel it. What does it mean when we embody that we're not alone and we never were? How would we interact with each other? How would we treat ourselves?
Yeah, and that's like the one thing I think you and I have always had in common. Is we could kind of we're both have always there's this awareness that there's all these different ways to connect
Mhm.
to all these different different information or different sources or different consciousnesses.
Yeah.
There's like there's binaural beats, there's drumming, there's meditation, there's all kinds of modalities to help us expand our consciousness. And I
Yep.
always have encouraged people to you know experiment with them, try to find the ones that are right, because I think different modalities are right for different people, and I think different
Exactly.
people are on different planes, different places with it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and light language isn't going to be there for everybody. It wasn't for me for 22 years of being in this. It wasn't for me. And still, like, I'm not one to, because a lot of people, light language is a part of their modalities, right? Like that they
Mm-hmm.
receive. I don't really listen to light language. I do it, but I'm starting to do it for music. I'm actually going down to Peru in a few weeks to live there for a month, and I'm going with my music producer, and we're creating a Dragon Light language music album.
That's
And
great.
it's, oh man, dude, he sent me some tracks yesterday and I freestyled on my phone
Hmm.
and overlaid like the what the Dragonlight language is going to be, but it's going to sound like I'm rapping, but it's
Hmm.
all in Dragon language.
That's cool.
Bro, it's so good. Yeah, so it's like I feel like I'm here to bring a different version of it down to earth, you know. But for myself personally, chanting and breathwork, those are the things that I really gravitate towards.
Hmm. Yeah, sound is such an important part of who we are, um, because it's in music, and in a way, like light language is that it's part of it. I almost see it as the same inspiration that would inspire, Mozart or Beethoven.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because it's truly a frequency, right? And see, the dragons told me that you're not speaking light language. You're speaking dragon language. It's the actual language, you know? And because they come from other realities and dimensions, we put on the label light.
Hmm.
But what makes them less light than us or more light than we are? Or
That's
isn't
true. That's a
isn't
good one.
everything just light experiencing itself infinitely?
Yes.
Or or even isn't everything just a frequency, a sound experiencing itself infinitely, and light and darkness are a product of that? So it's like the dragons were like, no, you're quite literally sounding like how we sound on our planet, right? But then we have put the term light language on it because we've given it hierarchy. And when you say light language, it's like, oh, it comes from the realms of light, right? But that's
Hmm.
just our own perception of it. But it's truly just the language translated through the human conduit. It's like having those translation earbuds, you know?
Hmm.
Or Google Translate that has the audible button, right? So you put the language in there and then you just click the button and now you can listen to it. That's pretty much what it is.
How does it affect other people, and why does it affect other people?
Yeah, well, everybody's language, I guess, affects everybody differently. But when I speak, I people tell me that they have very profound experiences. Just recently, one of my friends said that she felt that it was penetrating through every cell in her body, right? And another one said that it helped activate a deeper level of her own light language, so it kind of assists her with that. And the one that I do is very ancient and very deep and penetrative. Like you just
Hmm.
feel it, and like the sound is almost like the most ancient sound. It's the story of how the galaxy was created, right? Because the dragons were one of the first races in our galaxy. So when you listen to them, you feel that antiquity of that. So they give stories a lot. Like when the transmission comes through, it's like a story of incarnational processes, what happened on Earth, how they came to this galaxy, what happened to their descendants, things like that. And and it's almost like it puts things into perspective. I don't know if it's hard to explain, everybody feels
Hmm.
differently. But for me and for some people have shared to me, it's almost like you don't even know what it's saying in English, but it's almost like, oh yeah, that makes sense, you know?
I watched one of your videos on YouTube where you were
Uh,
speaking light language, and I could. It's like you can feel the words, like you feel it in a different way. Like you don't necessarily like you're hearing it,
yeah.
but you're also sort of feeling it like a vibration. I can
Yeah.
definitely feel it, like
Well,
hit my
it's
body
interesting.
almost.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and especially with that deep tone. And it's interesting because the light language, so a lot of people don't have words to go with the light language, but some people do, like English words. All right. And some people do, some people don't. And I didn't. And then around 3 weeks ago, I was in Sedona and a lot of amazing things were happening to me, meeting a lot of great people. And one morning, I'm doing light language and visuals are coming to my head. And I was seeing actual things occurring with the dragons. And it was like the visual component to what was being said. And then I was like, oh, that's interesting. I wonder if this is how it comes up. Like instead of words on what it's saying, I get a depiction of what I'm communicating. And then in that moment, words came too, English words. So, and I haven't tried it yet because that was the only time it happened. So I had the dragon language, I had the visual counterpart to it, and then I had a translation in English that all came at once.
Oh,
And that was really interesting because it was in Sedona. There was a huge upgrade going on for me. And so I feel like if I continue this, as I continue this, I'm going to be able to translate it as well.
that would be great to be able to hear what their message is in English.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I know, right? And so we'll see what happens. I have to do it more often. I do it very rarely, only
Hmm.
randomly. I was in a 4-day breathwork retreat for the last 4 days in San Diego. And like it was like 8 hours of breath work a day to be facilitator. And I talked to somebody and said, "Oh yeah, dragon language on my hip hop." And then she goes, "Oh, can you do it for me?" And then on our break and lunch, randomly she asked me to do it, and that's how it pretty much comes out. It's just like we're just like eating and we're talking, and somebody's like, "Oh, can you show me?" And then I show him for 5 seconds. It's like a freaking like like a trick or something, but um, so that's like only once have I, or only online have I really done it in like where I'm actually doing a transmission for people.
What do you think this will bring, like to humanity as a whole? Like what is do you think that these like the dragons are communicating to you to help us evolve and open up more?
Yeah, the dragons are definitely communicating to me and a lot of other people in that level. And so what happened was a couple of years ago when I had the regression, I didn't realize that we're like 2 weeks shy of the dragon year, right? Like it just so
Hmm.
happened that I had a regression, and then 2 weeks later, the dragon year was starting from the Chinese calendar. And one of the messages it gave me was that the dragons are the unconditional supporters of humanity, meaning they support without the need for recognition. And they've done that for a long time. They've been just assisting without needing to be known that they exist. But now is the time for them to come in the forefront. We all have inside of us a dragon heart that's not only connected to DNA, but quite a metaphorical dragon heart as well. Dragon hearts have gone dormant. They are here to help us activate those hearts. And so they're coming on the forefront. And so I've done two dragon conferences in the last 2 years, online events, and like 2 day conferences just on dragon wisdom and people that are connected to dragons. And I asked questions to the audience. Who 2 years ago didn't even think that they would be talking about dragons now? The amount of people that put their hands up is insane, right? Um, who never um, who is now in communication with the dragons have a deeper connection and they didn't have one a year ago. Almost everyone, right? And it was and then going around meeting people, going to events, meeting with friends, having conversations about dragons, the same thing. It's most of these people, even if they had a connection before, in the last 2 years, it's been a deeper connection, and many people are now contacting and communicating with them. So what is this is showing me through the numbers here is that there is a huge awareness of this energy coming onto the planet for many people
Mhm.
for a reason. And I'm not going to pretend to understand the full scope of the reason, but I would say that part of it is the fact that there's a lot of stuff coming from the underworld to the surface, individually through our own shadows, collectively through all the stuff that we've swept under the surface, lies, manipulations, deceit, corruption, um, atrocities of the world and society and governments coming to the surface. The dragon energy is the underworld energy with the fire, bringing things out to the surface and burning it with the fire. So partly what they're supporting us in doing is basically our own spring cleaning. They're assisting us collectively and individually to bring things to the surface, to clean the cobwebs out, burn them away, so that we can move into this new reality that we're creating.
Wow. So it almost sounds like a collective dark night of the soul
Exactly.
where we have to, bring, yeah. But as,
Exactly.
wow.
And also to continue with that, that was the dragon year. Now we're in the serpent snake year. So it's 2 years of reptilian energy back to back. Serpents are connected to dragons because they're both reptilians, and the serpent beings from this universe in the galaxy are the descendants of the dragons. The dragons were the first reptilian template, the first
Mhm.
reptilian template. All the other reptilians came from them. So it's 2 years of shadow work. And yeah, it's definitely collective, hardcore collective, but it's also individual. And like, for example, the transformation that we're speaking about right now, that actually is a level of shadow work. It's like a
Mhm.
more of like shadow work doesn't always mean evil or bad. It means a deeper reflection of what are we? What are we here to do? What are we bringing up? You know?
Yeah.
And many times within that, a lot of stuff will come to the surface that isn't serving us. And some of that is things that we're not comfortable with. Some of that is stuff that we've done that we don't like, right?
Mhm.
Other parts are just like traumas that we received and our lack of confidence in ourselves, our lack of self-worth. You
Yes.
know what I mean? That's also a part of the shadow, right? And so working through that, and what the analogy I've been giving a lot of times recently is that, like the snake, it sheds its skin. And but so that's what we're doing. We're shedding our skin. But the thing is, when the skin is being shed, we're kind of like, oh my God, what's happening? Something is leaving, something is trying to leave us. But what happens after the skin sheds is we realize that we're whole and intact all along underneath. We're perfectly beautiful underneath. And that's what's going on. And I liken this to the going through a wormhole. It's like when you're in that wormhole, you're being pulled in every direction,
Mhm.
right? And then when you go through it, you emerge into a different dimension or wherever you end up.
Yeah, it's usually surprising where I end up.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's not what I expect sometimes.
Mhm.
But
Same here.
yeah, yeah, the transformation part of it, the dark night of the soul. And when I look at the serpent energy also, one, it's been around for thousands of years, like forever, probably as long as anything has existed. And also, like, what I also think about when you mention is like sort of like an alchemical system too. When it's an alchemy where you're just like trying to burn away all the impurities and make
Hmm. Oh, I like
find
that.
that philosopher's stone.
Right.
That's what I was just thinking about as you were talking.
I like that one because that's kind of like we're the philosopher's stone in this situation,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm. Because like you mentioned earlier, like in this best analogy that I've come up with or anybody's given me is that we are the universe experiencing itself.
Yeah,
So therefore the universe has to exist from every possible perspective. And I'm pretty sure
exactly.
if a human is able to think of it, the universe is already created.
Yeah, exactly. And see that, and that's where we get into what is good and what is evil, right? It's like if the universe decided to experience itself infinitely,
Mm-hmm.
then isn't why would we stop the other polarity of the atrocities, the darkness, and all this stuff from occurring if that's part of the universe's plan, right? And we can stop things on this level because we have free will in order to impose a harmonious reality. But what I'm getting at is that can we look at the other side, the darkness, the evil,
Mm-hmm.
as quite much of a necessary evil as a catalyst for growth, right? And could we still hold these things accountable and bring it back to light or bring it back to harmony without the judgment of it? Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. We have to go through these things in order to evolve. It's not necessarily, I mean, it's evil in a sense as like in polarity. But when
Yeah,
you step out of polarity and look at the big picture, you see that that one has to exist in order for the other to exist.
yeah.
The universe can't just say, I'm going to create everything and leave out half of it.
Exactly. Exactly. So what that's such a good way of putting it because this is that's what I say as well. And what I my analogy is that if you so the universe didn't come from light. I mean, creation didn't come from light. It came from sound. It came from a frequency,
Yes.
right? And every ancient text talks about everything coming from sound. The ones that talk about God being light almost always are actual extraterrestrial beings or some angelic realm beings, but not actually the Big Bang, the original source of creation. The source was sound. Sound, whatever you want to call it, Big Bang, exploded, expanded, and it sped up to become light. It slowed down to become darkness. It was here, went one direction, both directions.
Mm-hmm.
Light and darkness both came from source.
Yes.
People think light is source, but light came from source.
Yes.
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was the light of all mankind. The Word was became the light, right? In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word was with God, right? That's like a paradox right there.
Yes.
So, so as the sound became all this, what I my analogy is, do you think that Source loved one part of itself more than the other? Or did it love both of itself equally? Right? And to continue on that one, if anything, it would love the darkness more than the light, even though it probably loves both equally. And the reason for that is the light is the closest representation to source, and but the darkness was the complete polar opposite, giving it the ability to experience itself more infinitely, right?
It did. Yeah. Yeah. Because it gave us more the individuality, the
Exactly.
choices, the experiences, the
And darkness
stories.
darkness wasn't always considered evil. Polarity came later. Polarity then became judgment. It was light and dark. For example, sun, black hole, light and dark, right? Destruction on the universe, planets being destroyed to be recycled, represent the darkness. The creation put it together represented the light, right? But the destruction wasn't evil, it was just happening in order for things to recycle, right?
Right.
And then we get lower and lower in dimension, and then we get polarity, and now we're starting to get good, evil, all that kind of stuff that comes from it. And then we get into the lowest of dimensions, our one, and now we've completely got this whole other aspect where I feel like we're in the most polarized reality we can be, in which darkness has become so fragmented from the original source that it doesn't recognize itself in that source anymore, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
the illusion is that, see, when we got planets being destroyed and planets being formed, when we got black holes and we got suns, it's a cosmic dance. They're all working together and we can see the tapestry. And it's always been a cosmic dance. But now we are in such a lower frequency on this earth, willingly and consciously choosing to be here, that we are seeing it as a battle, even though it really is still a dance.
Yeah, we're denying the creative nature, I think. Like one of the things I think about reality is that um it has to be at least 51% creative because
Yeah.
if it's anything less than that, like if it's 49% creative, eventually it will wipe itself out. And I also feel that it is being created out of love. I don't, I do believe that there is love underneath of all
Yes.
of this. Now,
Right.
now whether we have the ability to completely understand that, I don't know, but I know that we can feel it.
Yeah, yeah. And to talk about the creative aspect of it all, it seems someone told me this a while ago, and then my own experience and research, I feel backs this up for myself, is that when any being in the universe, or let's just say galaxy, because let me just break that down for a second. Like the universe is so vast that there are galaxies that even operate in different laws and regulations.
Mhm.
That this, I feel that this solar systematic rules, basically rules that if you exist within that solar system, you need to you that you are, I don't, maybe not rules isn't a good term, but let's just say frequency bandwidths that have regulations within it, right? Or collective belief systems. And then there's galactic ones, there's universal ones, and then there's different galaxies as well that may operate by a different set of rules or regulations, right? And as I'm saying this, I forgot what I was trying to talk about. You were saying something else.
I kind of
Where we
forgot
at?
too.
Okay. Anyways, we took it to a whole
Go.
other place.
Yeah, we're talking about. I was talking about how the universe has to be made of love, like that
Oh
there's
yeah,
undercurrent
creativity.
of love and creativity. You know.
Yes. So what I was getting at is, so the reason why, like I say, Galaxy a lot is because I don't really know how the rest of it is operating. But when you come up to when any being becomes sentient, right? Like humans, if you look at the Sumerian story, the Anunnaki story, or maybe even even the conventional evolution story, we were not self-aware, and then we became self-aware,
Mhm.
right? And and it seems like when any being becomes sentient, which is self-awareness, right? There's one level of consciousness, there's being aware. A dog is aware, okay? Then there's being aware of being aware, where you observe yourself being aware. That's humans,
Yes. Yes.
right? That's sentience. When you can observe what you're observing. Yeah, and which is a trip because that's probably happening to us on the
Yes.
cosmic level. Then the original spark of source comes up inside of you. And what is that original spark? I want to create. I am a creator being. And when then you start wanting to create stuff. And so that's what we're doing on Earth. So every dimensional story, if you look at our galactic history, you look at the story of the Lyrans, you look at the story of the Anunnaki, look at the story of the Elohim, look at the story of the Syrians and the Pleiadians on their involvement on Earth. You hear all these stories of seedings. And it's like, wow, these guys are just going around like mad lunatics, just freaking creating people from their own genes, right? Like, and it's because the original spark of source let me create something other than me and experience myself in that.
Right.
That is like
Yeah.
source's statement. When we have that spark awaken in us, we do that as well. So when the universe is created, because whenever the universe becomes self-aware, which are the beings within it, they decide to do what the original source said as well. It's a program within us. And that's what we're doing on Earth. We are always creating our own image. Even when we created a computer, it's a creation aspect of us being able to experience ourselves more infinitely than we already can. Even a phone. or a hard drive, right? What
Mhm.
is this? If you crack this open, are you able to pull out a contact number out of it? No. You have a device that's made out of electrical occurrences that shows light on the screen that is a device to access a dimension where data is stored. Because what is a dimension? A data set of information.
Mhm.
You go to a different dimension, you're now tapped into a different data set. It's like opening a door to a whole new archive of information.
Yes.
That's what our phones are. That's what our hard drives are. That's what robotics are. That's what AI is. It's been an evolution. Computers, phones, robots, AIs. It's been humans attempting to figure out how to create something in our image more like us, but like us on a level where all the best parts of us are within it. And
Yeah.
even you can even say some of the bad stuff, right? Like, so what I'm getting at is your statement of being creative, that that's what we're doing on Earth. That's what every being in the universe is always trying to do, create. And it's almost like we are the messengers of Source. We are the emissaries of Source carrying out the original mission.
Absolutely. And one you mentioned like how other dimensions and other galaxies may work on different sets of laws,
Yeah,
but yeah, like in here too, in this reality, if you it's really evident too, if you just look at nature and how it expands, like most things are pretty much based on a Fibonacci sequence and the
yeah.
golden ratio. Everything expands outward, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're expanding. It's a fractal, right? And we're just
Mhm.
fractalizing. And the thing is, we're fractalized and fragmented from the source in a fractalized manner, in a sacred geometrical manner. And it's like now the returning process is us going back the other way,
Yeah,
right?
we forgot, like you mentioned earlier, like the it's like the source was creating, and then its creations forgot that it was part of the source, and now we have to
Exactly.
kind of return back.
Remember it. Yeah. And that's just part of the game, right? Like I feel also one of the reasons we came to Earth was that a lot of people on Earth have been a lot of things. We've achieved a lot of great heights. We've achieved a lot of great awareness. It's not only a crash course for newer souls, maybe even to come down and get a lot of experiences in a short period of time because of the stimulation and the things that we go through here, but it's also a place for a lot of souls that have been gifted this planet because we've done so much, we know so much, we've achieved so much awareness and dimensional information that the next test was like, well, what can we do that's something different than what we already know? Well, let's go down to Earth, the lowest of dimensions, and let's wipe our memories clean
Mhm.
so that we could forget everything and see if we could still remember who we are and what we are, even when we have the cards stacked against us. And that is the video game. That's
The
the code in the
game.
video game that was created for us.
I do think that is true,
Yeah.
definitely. And I think there are certain one of the things I think about when like in our sacred geometry and in symbolism. I think we do come down sometimes on purpose to forget, but I also think that we've left certain markers to help us remember
Oh,
also,
yeah.
you know.
Exactly. Yeah. Certain markers, and then also the cycles of time, the calendar, the 25 to 26,000 year calendar of ascension and descension, the evolutionary cycle. We've also set that up. And then the ancient people, man, I mean, like what the Mayans left us, what the Egyptians left us, much of this stuff, most of the Egyptian information, I would argue we don't even know exists because it's been hidden from us, or we're not able to do archaeological digs to really get to the root of what they were trying to tell us. But civilizations seem to give us warnings because there also
Mhm.
seems to be a reset on the planet that happens every 13,000 years. We can track that there's cataclysms that occur on the planet sometimes every 13,000 years. Some people say it happens every 26,000 years. And this is conventionally accepted by science. We know that there was an asteroid impact or a solar flare and volcanic eruptions or a combination of all of them around 13,000 years ago at the end of the last ice age, at the younger Dryas period, right? And there was a reset on the planet. and quite possibly 90% of humanity of humans died, and then we had to
Hmm.
start all over again. And there's evidence in our scriptures. There's how many ancient scriptures talk about the flood story and talk about what happened?
All of them.
All of them, all right?
Yes.
And then how many of them give us calendars in which we can use to navigate the cosmos and the galaxy, right? Well, definitely the Mayans do,
Yeah,
definitely the
most of
Aztecs
them.
do, right? A lot of them have
Yes.
that. So we've also left ourselves clues, and these clues are for us to be able to navigate quite literally through the galaxy as our solar system is like its spaceship traveling through the galaxy so that we don't have to have a reset again, but we can continue on a path of remembrance. And the real goal this time around, I feel that we don't need to forget that we've gone through a lot of lessons, and now it's time to see what would happen if we continued evolving.
I agree. I do think that this is definitely a turning point, you know. I think when people souls do come to this planet, it's definitely a turning point in evolution back upward, or even maybe we've even maybe there are lower dimensions than this, and this planet is also still a step upward, but we still had to
Yeah,
forget it. Like I don't know exactly where we fall in the model,
right.
but I do believe that this planet is definitely about transformation, and it seems to be about transformation returning back to the source.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. Um, what things what do you think the source is? Like why do you think,
Mm,
like that's always like the big question. Like I'll tell you what my answer is before even letting you
yeah,
answer.
tell me.
I think if the source somehow became aware of itself, the instant it becomes aware of itself, it has to automatically bring into every absolute possibility there is, and we're a part of that. And the only thing it had to create all those possibilities is out of itself.
Okay, say that one more time.
I think the source became self-aware, just like we're self-aware. And in the
Yeah.
instant it became self-aware, every other possibility had to come into existence because you have one possibility, so therefore all possibilities exist.
Oh
And
yeah,
and
yeah,
it
yeah, yeah.
created it's like made like this massive field of information.
Hey, that's
And
a really good way to
and
put it.
we're somewhere in there. So, you know,
Right, right.
like
Yeah,
we're
and then
concentrated information.
right, because if you get into the parallel dimensions and theory or knowingness, I guess, is that all things that have happened and can happen all happen.
Mm-hmm.
That there's parallel realities where we're doing different things, and now I made a left turn instead of a right turn, and there's infinite forms of that. And that within the metaphysical component of source wanting to experience itself infinitely makes sense because this is a theory that is put into quantum physics and mainstream science.
Yeah.
And to me, that 100% backs up this metaphysical understanding that if source wanted to experience itself infinitely, not only are we a part of source experiencing itself infinitely, but there's infinite versions of ourselves experiencing other things, right?
Yes.
And then that gets into free will and destiny, right? So it's like if everything has happened that can happen and time doesn't exist linearly, all time exists as once, and therefore everything that we can and can't ever do
Mm-hmm.
is all happening in this moment. Could it be something like what Bashar says, is that there is no movement. Movement is an illusion, right? For example, look at virtual reality or a video game. That guy is moving from one part to another part. You can have a guy in Grand Theft Auto say they like made a gym in Grand Theft Auto, and you could walk into the gym and you can lift weights and you're playing the video game, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Is that guy really playing lifting weights, or is that a part of the code in which the code makes the reflection seem like he's losing weight? And is there a part of the code in there that says every 20 pumps you gain this amount of muscle mass? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, is that kind of similar to what's happening here? Because what Bashar was saying is that illusion, the movement is an illusion. what we're doing is we're jumping to a place, another parallel reality where we exist in that position. So every time we're moving, kind of like a video or taking video of someone, it's thousands of different frames, brrr, right? You're jumping from frame to frame to frame.
Hmm.
And I feel like this is very much a holographic, organic simulation
Me
infused with
too.
consciousness, infused with consciousness. And so what's occurring is that we are jumping from this parallel reality to this parallel reality always, right? So now we're here, now we're here. And the code has been designed in a way so intricately that we can engage in that activity and then we'll get the results as if it feels very physical, right? So so now back to predetermined and free will. When I first started doing events, 2008, 9, 10, I was traveling with my friend who was channeling a being called a Dronus, which was a Syrian extraterrestrial that he was channeling. And he did this whole channeling called predetermined free will. The universe exists in a paradox, right? Everything's paradoxical. The universe is infinite. The universe is also finite. The You're solid, but you're also vibration, right? All these are paradoxical. Quantum physics and Newtonian physics both are building blocks for each other, but they are paradoxical to each other, right? So it's the understanding that all things are paradoxical. And I go off on tangents. So when I go off on tangents, sometimes I lose my train of thought. But
Me too.
we go down the rabbit hole.
But yeah, I agree too. Like I do believe that there's some kind of organic
Yep.
information based reality, and information exists at all times everywhere. And I think consciousness is like maybe some other aspect of the source so it can experience all the information.
Exactly.
I mean, and yes, quantum physics is the most amazing thing because it pretty much backs up everything that we're talking about
Right.
in science. Like I grew up with this old fashioned model of the atom, of like looked like a little solar system, but now we know what an atom really is a packet of information.
Yeah. And the atom, now we know that is made out of even smaller particles called subatomic particles. And the subatomic particles are constantly vibrating and they're not solid. And they go by a different set of equations and laws than the atom, which doesn't make sense because how can the building blocks of the atom be made out of different equations than the actual atom itself, right? It's almost like saying like if you have a bunch of Lego pieces and each of these Legos are a subatomic particle, right? And so each of these Lego pieces are made out of water, right? But when you
Mhm.
put all the Lego pieces together, it's a solid castle.
Right.
It doesn't make sense. What I like to say is we're piercing through the veil. We're like, wait, this is what everything's made out of? How could this be true? Does that mean we're not really here? Well, it's a paradox because we're here and we're not here at the same time.
Right. Yeah. Non-local consciousness.
Yeah.
It's funny. Like it's definitely some type of it's an illusion, but it feels super real. It's
Yep.
like, oh my God, I
Exactly.
believe this is real. I believe it's real. But then there's always that other part of me that knows, like, oh no, it's not real. You're just here to think it's real.
And the cool thing is that if you really embody that, that can be a liberation, you know? Engaging in reality, but knowing it's not as real as we think it is, allows you to be liberated from the constructs of it on some level, right? We still got to pay the bills and things like that.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, it's still tricky. It's a humbling experience in a lot of ways. I guess that's what makes it um transformative.
Mhm. Yeah, it is.
Definitely. Um, do you have anything else you want to talk about?
Well, we can just spend a few minutes here and so let's go back to the shadow for a bit, and
Hmm.
because I wanted to share with people that I'm doing, and you might be hearing my nephew, he just woke up, he's crying in the background. Let me I'll mute it for a second because you're recording this, okay?
It's okay.
My
My
mom's
dog
taking
barks all
it.
the time.
He gets cranky in the morning. All right, so where were we? Okay. So, like I'm doing a course this year. I'll talk about my transformation a little bit.
Mhm.
Is that and somebody we did a year of the snake webinar this year, like all day conference, and um, one of my friends, Geraldine Orozco, who was speaking, she said something that really resonated. And she was saying that a lot of people are getting opportunity to drop into a deeper sense of authenticity. And we're at a crossroads where it's like we can go down one way and hold on to certain limiting beliefs about ourselves and what we think we identify with. Or we can go through a little bit of discomfort to emerge into something new. And it was really weird because I was telling people this myself that I was experiencing, and then she was saying that, oh, giving words to exactly what I was feeling and saying it for the collective consciousness. And I've had conversations with people since then, and it's happening to a lot of people. Like, I can't even begin to tell you how many speakers, how many friends, we're all in that. And a lot of what we think that we are, we aren't. We are so much more than that. And a lot of times we identify so much with what we do, including our bank accounts and things like that, where if you're really doing this work and you're here to do this work, like yourself, myself, and many others, is that we're almost being forced into a mini existential crisis on what we are really about in order for us to emerge into this newer reality. So as I've been going through these transformations, last 2 years were probably some of the roughest times in my life, very difficult. And now this year, I'm fortunate that things have shifted quite a lot. And so I've decided at Portal to Ascension to start doing more, as I said, experiential events.
Mhm.
And I'm doing a course now called the Shadow Workers course. Because people talk about light workers all the time. And I don't even think that it's about light workers. I think we're frequency workers because as we shared earlier,
Mm.
it's not really the
Right?
light is just one polarity of the two, right?
Yes.
So as the correction to the light worker energy, I'm doing a shadow workers course where we're really going into our own beliefs around darkness, atrocities, hatred, um, and also our own beliefs about ourselves and the things that are holding us back from becoming fully who we truly want to be. So I'm doing a 3 to 4 month course in August for that.
Wow.
And yeah, and it's like a container where we all going to be together for every single week doing this work. And again, the reason for this is I feel that for myself, I want to drop into a deeper sense of accountability so that I could move through some things that are really holding me back. And so I created this course that other people can join and be a part of as well, where we can do this together. And even in the course, like there's a whole section that says who this is not for. Because we're not going in this to just to freaking have a field day and be in the land of unicorns, you know?
Right. Yeah.
This is radical vulnerability and radical authenticity. And things are going to come to the surface. So sharing about the course, if people want to know more, it's at portal2ascension.org under upcoming events. But the reason why this, of course, this kind of work is important is and another analogy I'll give. I feel like maybe hundreds of years ago, or even sooner than that, if you look at maybe earthly incarnations, let's just give the metaphor of a black hole, of a black hole. And the black hole has an event horizon. Now, if you go through the event horizon, you go through the wormhole and you emerge into the next dimension, call it the fifth dimension, right? Humanity has been at the outsides of that event horizon of the black hole for quite some time, spinning around lifetimes and lifetimes. It would take you lifetimes to have 100,000 experiences, okay? Lifetimes. Because a lot of people didn't even go more than a couple miles from their own home. Some people only saw the same 5, 10, 20, 100 people their whole life, right? Nowadays, you're having lifetimes of experience in like 1 hour. The stimulation that you're receiving right now, this stimulation I'm receiving here is more stimulation than sometimes half a day of stimulation for someone 300 years ago in a little village. You know? So what's happening is we're being pulled closer to the event horizon. And when we get to the close to the center event horizon, what happens? Now you're spinning around it at a rapid speed,
Yes.
rapid speed, and you're meeting the same things over and over again, the same lessons, same experiences, the same opportunities, different opportunities to release those things that we've been holding on to get the reflections that we need, to become the people we want to become, to heal the trauma individually, collectively, galactically, right? And the only way, the reason why this is happening at such a huge level with stimulation, with time being as rapid as it feels, is because we cannot take our baggage into the next dimension. We where it's not possible. You can't go with specific sets of beliefs about yourself that are holding you back, do not exist in that frequency. And so the earth is literally, quite literally shaking us awake. Why? So what's happening? Hardcore shadow work. The earth is the earth is designed in order for all these freaking terrible things that we're finding out about celebrities, musicians, governments, lies, secret space programs, disclosure is being forced to the surface,
Mhm.
only so that we can deal with it and confront it in a good amount of time so that we can go through that event horizon and then emerge in a place where we've reconciled with all of that.
Collective purge.
Yep, the collective purge.
But it's not easy. It's not easy on the individual. Like I'm going through all sorts of things. And like you mentioned, like healing from trauma and this is would be a whole nother episode, but healing from trauma and I don't know, like really like for me anyway, believing in myself, believing having confidence in myself, having confidence in my own legitimacy as a podcaster or as a speaker or being
Yeah,
able to teach people about consciousness and about what the reality seems to really appear to be, at least from the perspective at this point with the knowledge that we have, you know.
yeah. And as you know, I've been doing this work for a while, and I speak at a lot of events. I do my own events as well, and I still get that. I still feel like, and there's also that imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm,
which
that's
is
that.
like, for a long time, I was I'm still have things I'm working through, but I was so traumatized from my life, and I was doing this work, and I was thinking I felt like a hypocrite doing this work, but having so much trauma. And then I realized that the people with those deepest traumas are the ones that are able to communicate about that more than someone who never had that experience, right? What if you
Yes.
had a love and light experience your whole life? What if you had the best parents and you lived the status quo your whole life and you're fed with a silver spoon, and now you're talking about spirituality, right? How it's almost like what gives you the credentials to tell people how to live a beautiful life when all you've experienced is a beautiful life. How are you able to assist people from really transforming all of the things that have happened to them in order to become somebody that has joy within them, right? So then I got to a point where I realized that, wow, actually, I see all the things that occur to me. I feel like I'm imposter. I feel hypocritical because of what happened to me as a child has made me feel this way about myself.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not really doing anything evil or bad. I just have a belief about myself based on things that happened to me when I was an innocent child, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now I realize more than ever, the reason why I'm able to help a lot of people is because of the challenges I went through, right? So it's a constant reminder because I was truly traumatized hardcore as a child. So it's like it's a constant reminder where I have to remind myself of that I'm that I have gone through these challenges in order to be able to teach other people on how they can get through other challenges as well, right? And the opportunity I have is because I have Portal to Ascension, I don't need to have gone through all the challenges. I've got thousands of speakers that have gone through all types of stuff in my platform. So it allows us to have a platform where people that have gone through all types of things, people have gone through all types of things, people who are just curious, people that are want to just know more information, everyone, they have someone that they can really resonate with on our platform because as we started, I think this whole podcast was there's many ways, there's many modalities, right?
Yes.
There are many pathways to the same destination, right? And Portal to Ascension, I feel that's really what my dream is for Portal to Ascension is to just be a place that has so many different pathways so people can find different things that help assist them in getting a bigger understanding of who and what they are, and then collectively helping humanity move towards a more harmonious world where we can treat each other with love and respect, and we can create a system that works for all of us, not just a few of us.
That's why I've always been a big supporter, man. Couldn't have said it
Thank you,
any
bro.
better. That was great. That was
Thank you,
really
man.
kind of touching what you just said. That was great. So I got to wrap it up. Um, so thank you for being on, and I'll put links to Portal Extension, or if you want me to put a link to your the shadow
Yeah,
workshop too in
I
there,
love that.
that would be
Hmm.
great because I think my listeners would be interested in that after listening to this interview. And it's just been a pleasure seeing you, man. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. You too. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
All right.